For as long as I can remember, they've been telling us to enjoy it while they're young, but our days are filled with chaos and stress and cooking and endless laundry piles. Where's the time to enjoy it? Yeah, that's what I always thought too. There's so much I have to do. When do I find time for peace and joy and happiness when I barely have time to sleep? Mama, it's time to make shift happen. You can be a happy mom. If I can, you can. Trust me. I've been a mess, I've been depressed, I've been overwhelmed, I've been to the bottom of the pit, and I've risen, I've grown, I've bloomed, and it all started when I realized I didn't have to anything. I get to. It is my privilege and my honor and my divine responsibility to be the queen of my home. It's not a burden. I'm not a burden. I'm in charge. I'm the ruler. I'm the chaos coordinator. I'm the calm in the storm, and so are you. Come with me. Let's rise, mamas. Adjust your crown. Accept your responsibility. Change the effing world together. It's all in the way we choose to see it. I'm so glad you're here, friend. You're listening to Meant to Bloom with Brittany Clarkson. Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome to Meant to Bloom podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Clarkson, and today I have a guest. I have Courtney, who is the host of Confetti Worthy Women and Chasing Courage podcasts, and she has some really great stuff to share with us today regarding becoming a mom a second time, and I'm really excited to dig into this episode with you. So, hello, Courtney. Let us get to know you a little bit. What do you want to tell us about you right out of the gate?
Oh my gosh. Hi. Thank you so much for having me. So yes, I am currently a mom to one. I have a little boy, Chase. He's 4.5. And then we are pregnant with our second, also going to be a son. My family and I live in Ohio. I've lived in Ohio my entire life. And from a professional or career side of things, I have been a full-time entrepreneur for 1 year this month, actually. And I do social media management, content creation, and then currently kind of diving a little bit more into like the motherhood and personal growth space, exploring what that looks like. A lot of that experimental stuff is what's on my podcast, Chasing Courage.
That is so exciting. I love that you're really like diving into that motherhood and mom stuff because that is my jam, and it is something I feel like our parents' generation missed out on.
100%.
Is that mental support around motherhood. And I felt like I was slowly watching my mom go crazy and didn't know what to do.
I so relate.
So, yeah. All right. So let's talk about kids. You were a one and done, weren't you?
Yes.
How did you guys like come up against how did you come to that decision to begin with that you were done after one?
Mm. So that was, it was, I'm going to say this as a blanket statement. It was easier than I thought that it would be to make that proclamation. The reason being was because, so a little background, I come from a family of 3 kids. So I have 2 younger sisters. My husband is an only child. I don't think that had it ever been that I would have married somebody who was an only child, that I would have been so comfortable with the concept of having a child without a sibling. Um, my husband loved his childhood. I think it's one of those things too. The more that I'm an adult and talk to other people who didn't have siblings, they're like, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you're missing because that's not what your life was. And I think that that's true on the opposite side of things too. Like, I can't imagine not having siblings. I can't imagine having 2 younger sisters. But what happened for me was I really thought that, not that I thought motherhood would be easy. I knew there was going to be tough journeys ahead, but I was a nanny for 4.5 years before my son came into the world. And then also, again, being the oldest sibling of 2 sisters, I was just like, I have all the experience that you could have. Even with being a nanny, from watching children from ages 9 months old to 10 years of age, I was like, I got this. And lo and behold, your own child is very, very different than other children. Like, you get to give them back. There's a different type of emotional attachment. And so all in all, motherhood was way harder and way different than I thought that it would be. And for that reason, my husband and I were like, nope, we're going to be one and done. Like, this is it. Because just the way that it mentally shook me. And he really, I'm very lucky in the sense that he didn't care either way. Like, we can have one, two, or three. But he was like, just so you know, I'm truly always okay with one because I grew up that way and I had a great life. So I believe that we could do that and give that to our son. So that's kind of the story and the reasoning behind why we thought Chase was going to be the only one.
Awesome. Yeah. So my husband and I, we both grew up with siblings,
Mm-hmm.
but we're both like psychologically only children
Mm.
because of that whole like we have age gaps where his next sibling is 8 years younger. And my next siblings, I have an 8 year and 10 year older brothers, and then a 6 year younger sister.
Mm.
We both grew up psychologically as only children, but we both also had siblings in our house that were close in age. Because his two younger siblings are 2 years apart. My two oldest siblings are 2 years apart. And so we both like watch this relationship of like, oh, I'm like a different kid and
Oh,
they're
yeah.
best friends.
Oh, yeah.
So we were both like, we don't want an age gap. If we're gonna have more kids, like we're having them all back to back. And so we have a 20-month difference between each child
Yeah.
for our three boys. Um, but like it's really interesting how the way you grow up determines like what you envision for your own kids. And it's like, I want what I didn't have.
Yeah. I feel like it's literally either one or the other. I want what I didn't have, or I want exactly what I had because it was, it went very well for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, okay. So yeah, and you're expecting now a second
Yes.
boy. That's so exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Um, so it was not on purpose, yeah?
That is
An
correct.
oopsie baby.
Yes.
How how did you come through those feelings? Because obviously it wasn't, I mean, were you just instantly everything changed? I was excited, or was it like, oh, wow, this was not expected. My whole world's crumbling for a moment. We need to pick up all the pieces, or like just
Mm-hmm.
walk us through like emotionally and mentally, like what went down when you found out you were expecting.
Yeah. So, because I know that this is a podcast that primarily mostly women listen to, I'll be a little bit more open and vulnerable
Mhm.
here and say, you know, technically, there is no such thing as a oopsie baby in the sense of like, we know what it takes to create a child,
Right.
right?
It's like we
Um,
didn't mean to create the child when we
yes.
did it.
Yes. And so I'll share too. So I was on oh my gosh, I'm gonna go blank. An IUD, a Mirena. And
Mm,
I wanted to get rid of that to kind of try to balance my hormones and do things more naturally. And so I was using an app to track my cycle, to track my ovulation. And so essentially, for those of you who listen who maybe have never explored anything like that, it essentially will give you like red, gray days and green days. So days it's like okay to do the deed, and days that it's not safe, or by not safe meaning like, use protection. Um, and so long story short of it all was there was literally one day where we ignored the advice of the app. And that's probably the day that this happened. Like if we count back, it works out perfectly. So that's kind of how it happened. The feelings that came up, I think a lot of them, there was an immediate sense of contentment when I saw the test, and the reasoning being because I went to an event. Did you go to Keisha's event in?
yes.
Okay, okay,
Yes.
yes. So that is where I had Keisha's event, for those who are listening, in the fall, personal development conference. And one of the speakers, Amber Lillystrom, who's also a mother, guided us through this visualization exercise. And it was during that visualization exercise that I saw myself as a mother of two. Like I saw a silhouette of two children. And I remember being in that moment, like with my eyes closed, the music's playing, but I'm literally internally in my mind going, no, this can't be right. Like, I don't know why I'm seeing two kids. Like, maybe this is like a niece or nephew or something.
Right.
And I shared with my roommates afterwards. I was like, guys, I just saw like so very clearly like two children. Um, and during that weekend, the weekend of Empower Her, I should have started my period and I didn't. So a couple days after being home, I was like, well, I guess I need to take a pregnancy test. And lo and behold, it was positive. And I think that so it's cool. It's really cool because it's like thinking back that during that visualization, the baby was like a couple weeks old inside of me. Um, but I think because I had that visualization, because I saw it, it was just like this little like it was like a little warning, like a little caution, like, hey,
Get used to
that
the idea.
yeah, that gave me like, a good week or so to be like, oh my gosh, what if? And um I initially like there was probably about a week where I was very, very mixed emotions. Um, I think it also helped that when I told my husband, obviously very shortly after taking the test, when I told my husband that, we're pregnant again, um, just the excitement and contentment with him too. You know what I mean? That really just helped put me at ease. So, some of the fears I had were around like, oh my gosh, like I've just started a business like less than a year ago at this point. Like, what's that going to look like? Obviously, a little bit concerned about my mental health. And, is it going to is it going to go backwards again and things like that? So, overall, though, and it's the other thing other than telling my husband was telling my son. Um, that was super, super cool, like how excited he was. Um, so, yeah.
That is exciting. I okay. I love that. Um, yeah, and I was so it's funny that the like natural family planning, how that works.
Yeah.
Because that's how we ended up with our third.
hmm People need to be very
Like
careful.
like I got my dates mixed up or something, and we had just started talking about like we just tossed around the idea like should we have another one now? It's the same distance as the other two, and we're like maybe. And then it was like 2 weeks later. I'm like, oh, I got my dates wrong. We are having another one now. But like it's got me thinking about like how crazy it is to have all the emotions when you like get pregnant.
hmm
Because even when you're like married and you're talking about more kids and it's like we're financially stable. We like even in my situation where we knew we wanted to have another one, we just weren't sure if it was like right now we want another.
Yeah.
When it happened, I still had like all this like fight or flight fears happening when I found out I was like for sure pregnant with a third one. It was like, oh my God, is my husband gonna be okay with it? He wanted us to wait 2 more months. Like,
Yeah. You go into
like
all
of
the black
course
and
he was
white.
fine, but it's like he
hmm
was excited. He was like, wow, it was fast.
Yes. Well, and
But
this is the
it's
thing too for yourself or for anybody who's listening. For me, I believe in God, but God, the universe, whatever you believe in.
yeah.
Like when you say something like that or think something like that out loud, like is this the right time? Should we try? If it's meant to be, it's literally going to happen or not.
Hmm.
And so I think that was another element of my contentment. And maybe you can relate to that. It's just like, well, like obviously this is what we're doing now. Like this is the plan and the path that was set out for me anyways. So this must be the right time.
Right. Yes. Timing. That was another. It's amazing how like, yeah, perfect timing works out with things. And I know you have a lot to say about that too. That yeah, I'll let you take it. Perfect timing for
Yeah,
sure.
I, my initial thought, because I was the exact same as you and your husband, where you talked about how if we're going to have multiple kids, we want them to be close together. So they have that bond, that friendship.
Hmm.
Um, very much prior to having my son, when I thought that I would have multiples, wanted the exact same thing. Within a couple of years of each other, 1, 2, 3 years would be ideal in my mind. I wanted that close relationship with them. And obviously, then very soon after having my son, when we decided no, then time didn't matter because there was never going to be a second one, was the thought.
Hmm.
But it's like now I think about just all the positives of the timing. Um, my son will literally turn 5 a couple weeks after this little guy's born, and the independence and the help that he can provide. It's not like I have to like change 2 sets of diapers or have to go
Hmm.
through potty training with one while doing that. He can get some food out of the fridge by himself. He gets dressed by himself. um, we've been going on a debt journey, paying off a lot of debt. And this summer, like a whole bunch of debt payments fall off. And it's like, and then this summer we'll have baby expenses that will take the, to replace that. But like, that's okay. At least we have that money freeing up. Um, just a bunch of little things that are like, even though I couldn't have picked it for them to be like 2.5 years apart, in some way, somehow, these 5 years is gonna be like the perfect time for us, at least right now.
Yeah. Right. Like, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I believe in God's perfect timing, and it's so much better than anything that we can plan on our own.
Yes.
Like I was just having a conversation about this yesterday, and I was like, because we were talking about like manifestation, me and one of my friends, and how like some people are like manifesting everything into your life, like money and finances and stuff. And I'm like, I don't trust myself to choose what's best for me.
Mm,
Because I know that I don't know everything. And every time like I have like the rug swept under me out from under me, like we're trying to buy a house and the one we thought was perfect, we ended up not getting. And I'm like, like Keisha, you mentioned her, she says it all the time, like, or yeah, she says it, like the rejection is protection.
yeah.
Like, I don't know what I don't know.
Yes.
And if something's not for me, if the timing's not working out the way I planned it, it's because there's something better, because I know I'm missing pieces to the puzzle, and I don't trust myself to fully plan out my life perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah. I That's an amazing analogy, and I totally agree with you.
Yeah, it always works out like better than we can plan for ourselves.
Yeah, I believe that it's like it's either this or better. Like if we can at least have that mentality, not like it's this or it's worse. Like, no, maybe
Hmm.
truly what you're in is the worst case scenario. And I use air
Yeah,
quotes there.
absolutely. So what else would you want the mamas listening to this to like learn from your story, and to like what wisdom should they be gleaning right now? Like,
Mm. I think when I think about, some of the, we were just talking about some of the different changes in my life, physical changes or the physical place where I am. Like, some other just like little things. When we had my son, we lived in an apartment. We now have like a full regular size functioning home. Um, and then I think about some of the work that I have done and the changes I've made as a person. Like when my son was born, for about the first 2 years of his life, I wasn't into or didn't do any of this personal development stuff. I didn't listen to podcasts. I didn't read. I didn't have like an online community of friends where I, could get on a Zoom and chat like this or talk to people in the DMs. And I think that that honestly is one of the biggest things that I feel like, okay, if postpartum depression or anxiety hits me after I have my second son this summer, I have other resources, different resources, better resources than I had 5 years ago. Like the ability to like listen to a podcast or take time for myself to read or reach out to a mom friend on Instagram, post about what I'm struggling with on Instagram. And that literally makes me feel better. So just all of those things of like really take the time to acknowledge where you were and to how far you've come. And if you don't feel like there's that much of a difference, it's never too late to change that, because I think that having those external resources will be the difference between how I navigated postpartum depression or anxiety back then versus how I may handle it now.
absolutely. I love hearing that. Yeah. Always be seeking growth, and always know that like there's always time to like learn more.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like sometimes, whether it's having another baby, or, even just like trying to like seek out mental development or healthy habits, I feel like we get stuck in this mindset that we are starting over in a lot of ways. Or like, oh, here we go again. We're doing the same thing again.
Mm-hmm.
And it never really is. You're always like starting from a better place, from a newer place. You have a new perspective, you have more experience. It's just, yeah.
That's super good. Like that's like a good little soundbite right there. Like I've never thought of it like that, but you're so right. You're never starting again because you're never where you were.
No.
Even if you're like
I
this much, like a half of an inch, physically, psychologically, mentally, you're a little bit progressed, and that can literally make all the difference.
It really can. Yeah. I have this one example, that like this visualization. that I use to cope with this whole idea is I used to think I was like going in circles until I started seeing it. I don't know who said it. Someone said something that like triggered this thought in me that it's not going in circles, you're going up a spiral staircase. Every time you're coming around hitting that same obstacle again or starting again, you're at a higher level.
That's good. That's really good. It's so encouraging and empowering to just have that analogy to take something that you're dealing with in life and think about it like that. And that reframe is like so good.
So, Courtney, if you don't have any more to tack onto this, I will let you tell my listeners who are resonating with you and vibing with you, where can they go to find you and to follow you and to learn more from you?
Awesome. Thank you. So the two biggest places would be either my podcast or Instagram. The Chasing Courage podcast is the one that I'm updating on a regular basis, pouring myself into. And really, I kind of put that into like what I talk about are three different categories: motherhood, mental health, personal growth. So if you're a mom who can resonate with any or all of those things, then I think the Chasing Courage podcast will be helpful for you. Then on Instagram, I do have two accounts. One is Confetti Worthy Media, which is the name of my business. So that's really social media focused. And I also just don't update it that much. It's more just there to have an account tied to the business name. But then my regular personal Instagram is Courtney_Wendzicki, which is just my name. Spelling of Wendzicki, I'm sure they could find down in the show notes from you because it's not the easiest of last names. And I'm there every day. Even if I'm not posting, I'm in stories or in my DMs. So literally, like if you listen to this, like come say hi to me in my DMs and I will say hi back and it will mean the world to me.
Awesome. Yes. So, ladies, I know all of you resonate with the motherhood, mental health, and all that. So, go right now, you're on your podcast app, go follow Chasing Courage with Courtney, and then go find her in her DMs and let her know how this episode is helping you. What'd you take away from this one? All right. Thank you, Courtney, for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me today for this episode of Meant to Bloom. It really does mean the world to me. But are you ready to take this a step farther? Check out the description below of this episode and grab your mindset makeover. It's totally free, my gift to you. Then hop on Instagram and let me know what you thought of this episode. Tag me at Britt Clarkson. That's BritClarkson. If any part of this resonated with you, please let me know by tagging me or leave a review and share on social media so other mamas can find this too. If it helped you, it's going to help someone else. You're part of a movement now. Let's go.